Guys, welcome to This Week at the NCPA. You have to go to the National Center of the Performing Arts, the Open Air Plaza, as well as the Experimental Theatre, the Little Theatre, because what is happening is extraordinary. Olympism Made Visible is a photography exhibition. Along with it, there's also an exhibition of motion pictures, films and documentaries made over the sands of time on the Olympic Games. And this is happening, this festival, till the 7th of October, and entry is absolutely free. We're very pleased to welcome two very eminent photographers who are part of the exhibition. They're exhibiting their work, Dana Lixenberg and Lorenzo Vitturi. Hi, how are you, Dana? How are you, Lorenzo?
Hello, hi.
I want to start
recovering from the opening.
Yeah, that's exactly where I want to start. I mean, it's a wonderful space. But very rarely is it used in the form that it was used, what you saw last night, Dana. What did you think of the display, the area, the picture, and of course all the wonderful people you met at the NCPA?
Well, that was definitely, start with that. That was really a highlight. We met so many amazing people and the atmosphere was very inspiring. And it's really wonderful to be here. My first time in India. And the installation looked really good, and they pulled it off in such a, short amount of time. And it were monsoon rains and all that, and they still managed to get it together. But it was a wonderful event with many athletes there. And really
Lorenzo, you want to talk about that? I mean, it is also very special for us in India because we had a lot of former Olympians there. People who had won medals for us. People who had done very well for us in the Olympic Games. I know, you're Italian. You live in London now. That country and the city you live in now is very rich sporting culture. All kinds of games. And you must have pretty much grown up with the Olympics. How did you feel about last night?
Well, I think it was really a wonderful event, and especially to see the Olympians and also this video that the Film Heritage Foundation, the IOC, prepared, where was all these, the highlights and sort of a recap of the history of Olympic Games and Indian Olympians winning their games. And there was a group of 8, I think 9 Olympians, and to see, the emotion that came out from the connection between the video and the athletes was really, I think, intense. I think it was really a beautiful and quite authentic and intense moment, seeing these Olympians remembering, seeing themselves winning in the past. And then I, personally spoken with one athlete that told me that he has never seen, her daughter never seen herself winning in the Olympics, never seen herself, in the images. And I thought it was really interesting to see this connection between, the images and the athletes.
Now let's talk about your work. Dana lives and works in New York City and Amsterdam, and I find it very fascinating that in the midst of the Syrian civil war that began in 2011, such a heavy toll on hundreds and thousands of children's families, there's so much of a refugee and displacement crisis, you managed to take your camera in there and come up with some really extraordinary stuff. And I'd like you to talk about that and Generations for Peace, GFP.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually in Jordan, so there's thank goodness peace in Jordan. And yeah, this was the centers where I made the photographs were all in the north of Jordan, where they focus on the integration of refugees. They focus on children, young people, to integrate them in Jordan society and to kind of promote the idea of living together peacefully, because it's also a big burden on Jordan society. The schools are overflowing, so they have double shift schools and schooling. And here they have from the north Jordanian children and Syrian children coming together and doing this wonderful program that's run by local people from the area, and also the young people who come, who finish the program, they often become volunteers and start working there again. So they'll pass on their knowledge and to activities, creativity, art, and play, art, conversations, and really amazing. So it was, I'm sure a lot of the children, like, and their families, have gone through traumatic experiences and being displaced from their country. But of course, with children, I really entered into that conversation with them. I mean, I really wanted to portray their charisma, their resilience and personalities, and really give them a stage. And they were amazing, and also the volunteers and coordinators who run the center. So I kind of focus on that. I work with a large format camera, so it's always on a tripod, sheet film, it's not roll film. So it's a very sort of slow, collaborative process where I have to really work with the person I'm photographing. And even if we don't speak the same language, I mean, I did have a local assistant that helped, but I often, when I'm working, I work kind of in silence, and it's amazing that people, when you're photographing people, they kind of see, it's a sort of silent dance, and it was really a beautiful experience to be there.
Now, let me just explain what she's talking about, simplifying it further. Mm-hmm. The influx of Syrian refugees into Jordan is something which really the world needed to take note of, because when things like that happen, it not only causes tension in the refugee community, but in a large part of the host community also has to adjust. So it's not easy for them. So what she's talking about is capturing the refugee, the host communities, in particular the children. So sport-based games always help, don't they? To take the children, the minds off things. I don't know if it was the great boxer Muhammad Ali who once said that you put the kids in sports, keep them out of drugs, and all the bad things that society throws at them.
Well, and also in this case, they're addressing issues of violence.
True.
They have workshops about domestic violence in general, and how to solve conflicts, and it seemed very successful. And Jordan is very inspiring in that way as a country. I mean, they have a huge Palestinian population, and it's quite amazing how much, I'm sure they get some international support for that, but how they've absorbed so many refugees.
Now, let me tell you about Lorenzo. He's very close to what we Indians love. He's a photographer and a sculptor, but formerly a cinema set painter. And you know how crazy we are about Bollywood, Lorenzo.
Of course, yeah.
You'd be a mini celebrity in India just because of your set painting, not because of your photography. So wonderful to have you here in the home of Bollywood. But I find it, again, very intriguing that you would go into Cambodia. Olympism Made Visible has photography by Lorenzo, whereby he's gone and he's captured this non-profit organization called Skatistan in Cambodia, which, again, we're talking children ages 5 to 17, some wonderful expansion of sports and educational opportunities despite coming from one of the most poor countries in Asia and the world. Lorenzo, please explain to us.
Yeah, I think it was really an incredible project, because they invited me in 2019 to go to Phnom Penh, so the capital of Cambodia, and especially in this quite poor neighborhood in the outskirts of Phnom Penh, where Skatistan used like a warehouse, a dismissed warehouse, to install all the facilities to practice skateboarding. And they activate this program, especially with like children from the neighborhood who usually face difficult circumstances, and I think they use skateboarding as a practice to, in a way, empower children and let them practice sport, as a sort of way to improve their daily life. And I thought it was as soon as I arrived, my idea was to also activate this kind of collaboration with the children, and then to create this series of images, which is also not like I'm not a classical documentary photographer, as I mix different disciplines in my process. I'm merge photography with sculpture, collage. And then, of course, the sculptural work is quite important. And I use this kind, all my sculptures are made with objects and, local products that I find in the location. So I sort of started to photograph the children during their sport practice, but also started to, create this kind of collaborative process with the children themselves, and started to build these ephemeral sculptures, using also all the tools and the objects that I usually use in skateboarding, but also the objects I found in the children's neighborhood. And so this kind of collaborative work, the work came out, and I thought was really try to recreate and to visually represent through the images the energy that I found, and to see how really sport can be used not only as a competition in a professional way, but also like really to improve, like in this case, children's lives. So that's what I try to represent in the images.
What you also need to do, everybody who's watching and listening, is get on to Book My Show or ncpamumbai.com, the website, and you can register for workshops. I'm sure places would have gone out by now, but you can still try your luck. Workshops with these two wonderful acclaimed photographers. Isn't that a wonderful opportunity to meet aspiring photographers, fellow professionals, and also people who can learn from you, Dana? What can we expect from the workshop?
Well, it's a one-day workshop, so it's going to be pretty, I think, partly improvised. I'm going to share, I'm going to talk about my work and show some of my work and talk about my practice, and then all the participants will bring some samples of their work, and we'll look at that, and we're just going to talk about portraiture. That's kind of the focus of the workshop, and I also do a little exercise and kind of produce some work in a very short amount of time, and just look at that, and just to kind of I have to see who is going to be there, and I'm afraid I do think it's quite filled up already, but for me it's really just interesting to see where who's coming, and kind of we're going to exchange, that's hopefully mutual inspiration. That's what it's about. And
Lorenzo, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a similar experience for me. I mean, it's different because then I think it's in a workshop with students, but also like professional photographers. Instead, my work is going to be mainly with children. So I think we are like working with the local schools, and I'm trying to, because always I try in this case to work in the neighborhood, and we are trying to I'm going to invite the children who participate in the workshop to experience my process, and trying to still use objects, really simple objects and material, to start to build these sculptures, and then photographing them, and then also mixing photography with materials, and trying to really recreate in one day what I usually do in my work.
That's lovely. My last question is about use of public places, not just art galleries, but public places to exhibit photographs and photography exhibitions. I mean, Europe has a lot of those. In India, we've started doing that. I mean, of course, the vagaries of nature, nobody can predict. We always hope for a nice sunshiny day, and then there will be some showers, so you have to take adequate precaution. But the fact that, an open-air plaza at the NCPA, the National Center of Performing Arts, is being used for a photo exhibition. You cross the road and, the Marine Drive, which is just by the sea. It's a promenade. There's some exhibitions there. What do you feel about that? Because I think that's wonderful that citizens get to explore the work of photographers like yourself.
I think it's really wonderful that it's open to the public, and I think it's less sort of maybe entering a museum for some people is maybe more daunting, and this way, I mean, I'm hoping, I saw how many people were out on a Sunday I'm not sure if it's still open on Sunday, but they're all everybody's engaged with photography. They're all like having little photo sessions on the Marine Drive, and you hope that some of these families just wander over, that they know to find it. Hopefully, they should advertise it almost on Marine Drive to get people to just have a look and also watch the movies that are being played all over town. It's I'm not sure.
Lorenzo, public exhibitions, your thoughts on them?
Well, to me, it's the street is where I get my ideas. Where is my main inspiration is the street. Is where I get my stories, and I work in all my subjects usually are like local market, street, neighborhoods, and so to me the street is the ideal place that, to show also the work. And I think is especially photography is a medium can adapt to different environments, and in the street, in the public space, it works really well. And I think it's really it's one of its powers and capacities to be able to be presented to a wider public, not only people who are really involved in art. So to me, every time that I do a personal project, I always find a way to present it in a public space, in the street as well, with posters. So I think it's really important. Everyone should be really the governments invest in this kind of different ways to present art, and not only in museums and gallery spaces, but to present art to the widest public possible.
There you have it. Sorry, yeah.
And I also think to challenge an audience. It's sometimes nice when things are in the public space, and it might make you stop and wonder about it, and that's kind of what is,
Yeah. Lorenzo Vitturi, Dana Lixenberg, they are exhibiting on Olympism Made Visible, the festival. It's an exhibition at the National Center of Performing Arts till the 7th of October. There's also Olympics in Real Life, a festival of films where you can go and see films. It's absolutely free of cost. It's brought to you in partnership with the Film Heritage Foundation, the Olympic Museum, and NCPA. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Much love.
Thank you.
Welcome to This Week at the NCPA, where we tell you about what's alive and buzzing on stage and off it at the National Center of the Performing Arts. 14th and 15th of October, that's Saturday and Sunday. Exciting play. It's called St. Nicholas. It's written by the Irish playwright Conor McPherson. On the 14th, there are two showings. Saturday, 6 p.m., 8:30 p.m. Sunday, again, two showings. This time, 5 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. If you can't remember all of that, it's ncpa.com. Very simple. Or Book My Show. Tickets are available at Book My Show as well as at ncpa.com. And I'm always pleased to see this man, Zafar Karachiwala, somebody who we've loved, admired, and seen on stage for years and years. How are you? How's the day job is what I should ask you.
The day job's kind of sidelined right now because it's all a blur, to be honest, because it's day job into rehearsal with very less in between. So it's good. It's good.
And Bruce Guthrie joins us, head of theatre and film at the NCPA. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well.
Bruce, I'd like you to start by telling us about Conor McPherson, about The Irishman, and what caught your fancy about this playwright. What was your introduction to Conor and about this particular piece?
So I first encountered Conor McPherson's writing when I was at drama school, and I was looking for a monologue to be able to do a Dublin accent in. And I happened upon a play of his called Dublin Carol, which is a three-hander play set in Dublin in an undertaker's office. He has a tendency to write plays that have always got an element of the macabre and supernatural in them, but they also bring an essence of kind of like sort of everyday life, and he makes the ordinary extraordinary and makes the extraordinary ordinary. And I read this monologue and did a very bad Irish accent as part of my accent class, but that was intrigued to read more about him. And then I read plays like The Weir, and more recently is that he's done things like The Girl from the North Country, which is a musical which is about Bob Dylan. And I was just completely compelled by his style of writing, the ability to be able to tell a story and weave elements of the supernatural into it. As I said, this is that as I was growing up as a kid, this is that I loved, you know, the Hammer horror films, the Universal horror films, and would sit up on a night with my grandmother and watch them. You know, it was our kind of thing together. It was our bond. This is that, you know, I was single digits, so I was about 8 or 9 years old, and that we would sit and drink tea and eat toast and watch terrible horror films, but it was great fun. And St. Nicholas actually came to me by way of 2 different sources. One of them was a chap called Brendan Coyle, who plays Bates in Downton Abbey, and he was doing the play, and he'd invited me to come and see it. Now, I couldn't come and see it, but he talked a lot about it and how much he loved the play, and that then a person who's on my advisory committee here at the NCPA said, this play would work really well with an Indian audience. And I was like, why do you say that? She said, I can't tell you why, but I just feel like it would work very, very well. That sense of storytelling, that sense of the supernatural element of it. She's like, I think that people will find it interesting. So I had a conversation with Connor about it, who's thrilled that we're doing the play, because he has an adopted daughter who was born in Delhi. And so there's a kind of strange Indian connection with him through that. So he's really thrilled that we're doing this. And I've been thinking about doing it since I got here to the NCPA, really. And we were looking for the right opportunity and, more importantly, the right actor to do it. And Zafar and I worked together on Every Good Boy Deserves Favour. He had, you know, one of the most spectacular cameos in all of theatre, coming down that Donald Trump-esque golden staircase with all the medals on, and has about 10 lines and then leaves. Just as spectacular.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but I upstaged everyone else in those 10 lines at the end of the play.
Yeah. And you know, and they enjoyed every second of the few seconds that he was on stage. But that, having worked with him on that, and I wanted to work with him in a more kind of like sort of in a much longer period, which is why, you know, kind of like, so he gets about 10 seconds on stage with that piece, but then now he's on stage for 80 minutes, like non-stop, talking to us. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it, Zach? But yep. Yeah, we talked a bit about the play, and I sent him the script, and he read it and liked it, but wasn't sure initially, and I think he'll forgive me for saying that. But then I said, come and read it aloud. Let's read it. And he read it, and then after the reading, I said, how do you feel about it now? And he said, it's brilliant. Actually, I get it now. And it's that thing that Connor's got, is that the story is exciting and it's compelling, and it's also is that you get to see this person, this character, kind of warts and all. You know, I don't necessarily think that he's a very good person, but he's an interesting person. And the story that he tells us it's got elements of Milton in it, it's got elements of Chaucer in it, it's got a bit of Homer's Odyssey in it in terms of the style of the storytelling. But also is that, you know, it's funny. You know, I mean, like, so his observations about life are funny. He's a theatre critic, and he delights in, you know, being really acidic about people and being really kind of like sort of quite nasty at times. And it's kind of funny to listen to that. It's great to listen to somebody else talk about other people like that. If they say it about us, I think that we're less likely to be happy about that. So the play does that, and then you have the fantastical element of vampires. And he talks a lot about what vampires actually are, and has got a completely different take on the mythos of it. And of course, Connor's an Irish playwright. Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula, was Irish as well. So there's all sorts of strange connections with the play there. And when I asked Connor, what made you write that? You know, what was we ask every writer that, you know, what compelled you to write this? He said, I have no idea. He said, it just came to me, critic doing this, vampires, brilliant. And you're just like, okay, that's all the reason I need. And, you know, we've been rehearsing it, as Zaf will tell you, is that because he's, you know, we've been rehearsing it in the evenings. And there's been a few times whereby that there's been nobody else in the NCPA. It's just been me and him, and that we've been working, and that there's a lovely thing that happens in a theatre with a spookiness about it, you know. I mean, like, so
The
when there's
eeriness,
nobody, yeah, I mean, it's great. And you know, during the pandemic, I was here as well, and so there would be times whereby that I would wander about campus, and you would walk into the theatres, and we would have the ghost lights on stage. It's just a kind of symbol that everybody would return to the theatres and all that. And it was just, there was something kind of spooky about it, but ultimately quite calming as well. And I think that there are elements of this play where you'll feel that as well. And I think that for an audience that enjoys, just first of all, a really, really good and entertaining story, that's the first thing. People who like to laugh at things that might be slightly, you know, kind of like, so, like say, biting and a bit acidic. And people who are literature lovers. And ultimately, people who like a good ghost story. I mean, we're into October now, or at least we will be into October, is that, you know, getting close to Halloween is that it's kind of perfect for all of that.
You know, Bruce's team at the NCPA sent me a one-line premise. When a jaded and cynical Dublin drama critic comes under the spell of a beautiful young actress and pursues her into a coven of vampires in modern-day London, storytelling at its spooky best comes to vivid life. We'll come to the vampire bit and the young actress bit, but where are the critics, Zafar Karachiwala? I remember when you and me started off in the 90s, there used to be a radio critic. There used to be a guy called Milton who used to write about radio programs. You yearn for that stuff. Even if you want to trash me, at least write about me. I think they've all moved on to Bollywood.
That's right. I mean, there's not many critics left, are there, in theatre?
Yeah.
You know, we had Jiten, I remember Jiten Merchant used to do so much good work for the Times of India.
Fantastic stuff, yeah.
And I remember him very vividly. But yeah, there's not many people. I mean, people do come and, you know, it's more like nowadays it's more just a synopsis of what the play was about, and that's it. And, you know, you get a rating and that was it. But yeah, this character is so interesting, you know, as a critic, and a true critic, you know, except that he's the sort of guy who finds shortcuts in life, and he will, you know, he's been doing this for so many years that he feels that he needs to now just refer to something else, and he will just write a piece based on, most of the time he'll have his review written even before the play is finished. And he's off at the pub doing his thing. He's acerbic. He's you know, he's acidic. He hates people, and yet he's a critic. And he loves the fact that all these people rely on him for their jobs. So, you know, he could destroy an actor or destroy a director's career just by saying something nasty about them in an article. So that spurs him on, and that gives him this weird kink in life. And he lives off that, you know, his whole relationship with his work, with his family. It's beautifully written, yeah, Hrishi. It's just when you see it, and I'm sure you will agree with me, as for an actor, it's just one of those stream of conscious pieces that, I mean, you know, one whole lifetime to have this sort of piece to do. It's really something, really something.
But you know, Zafar, it is daunting when somebody turns around and says, "Man on a bare stage," and I believe there are no stage directions.
That's the thing, you know. Very often you'd have plays or play scripts, you know, written with not just directions, but even punctuations. There's nothing. Very often you have pause, and you have a writer who will say, "Oh, there's pause here," because the writer wants you to pause. You look at a Neil Simon, you look at anyone else, you know, and you know, okay, the writer needs me to pause, but there's nothing. It's a blank stage and a blank script in that way. And initially, when I first started reading with Bruce, I thought it's an Irishman's play, so maybe one has to think the way the Irish think. But over time, we've realized that it's just such a universal piece that anyone in the world can do it and put their own take on it, you know, and it would completely change. The way we take a line is very different from the way an Irishman would take a line, right? But it's just, and it works. And we've discovered that over time, and the play has changed. It's something I'm sure that no one else, I'm not sure if any other Indian has done this piece, but I'm sure Conor McPherson, when he sees it, will see a completely different, you know, interpretation of his work. And that's the beauty of the writing, that it's so universal and so poignant and so timeless, and so hypnotic almost. For me, it's like, you know, man, I mean, I start the piece and I go through the piece. It's like Bruce says, it's 80, 85 minutes maybe with the interval. And oh my God, it's I don't know, it's done by the time we're through the first. We're working on the first act right now, and we go through, and it just feels like, wow, what has happened? Every time I do it, it's a lovely feeling. And
Bruce, you're right. You did say at the top that the element of fantasy is something we're all caught in. I mean, I love the fact that in a regular station, an invisible railway platform can just appear and Harry Potter can take a train. You could go down a manhole and meet vampires, in a city like Mumbai or Dublin. I mean, that's the beauty of allowing the human mind to generate stuff. And indeed, when you say it's contemporary, do you also refer to the fact that, I mean, in a way, this is a man surrounded by bloodthirsty vampires looking for true love? Could be true of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he talks a lot about love and the nature of love in the piece. And, like Gothic horror and Gothic romance are kind of like, are quite, closely linked within it. And so there is an element of that to it, but that it's also the modern day element. They do challenge, kind of like preconceived notions of what vampires are, and about, kind of like some of the stuff, whether it be to do with garlic, whether it be to do with crosses, the Bible, all of that kind of stuff. It all comes up. And the nature of what a vampire is, I mean, like, so by nature is that a critic is somebody who makes a living off of someone else's work, lifeblood, whatever you want to call that. And so from that element is that the idea of anything which is kind of parasitic in nature, somebody who does something and someone else judges it, is a kind of vampiric kind of relationship. And he also, the character also talks about his aspirations to be a writer. And a lot of his kind of cynicism and resentment kind of comes from this. And that the idea of St. Nicholas as well is that, in terms of the title, is that, and Zafar knows more about that. In fact, he was doing these research into this, and we were digging it up, and I was like, well, why is it called St. Nicholas? Isn't that supposed to be about Santa Claus? But it's not. And it's actually this thing of St. Nicholas of Myra, and the idea of somebody having to die and then be resurrected in order to realize their true potential and talent is the way that the myth goes. I think that's right, Zaf, isn't it?
That's right. He was sainted post his death. And after his death, the St. Nicholas of Myra managed to do all the good work that he did for the people, in that area.
Wow. And I just thought it was a no-brainer with Santa Claus.
I know. And it could be.
Well, it is a gift of a play. There you go.
I mean, I won't give much away, but he does bring gifts to the vampires, and so you never know. It could be that interpretation as well.
Zafar, when you're alone on stage for 85 or 90 minutes, it's a one-man play, do I take it for granted that you are actually conversing with the audience, even when you're not conversing with them? I mean, you've got to think of the audience as an actor, isn't it? I mean, otherwise it can get awfully lonely out there.
The first direction that Bruce gave me was, don't act. Talk to us. And it took me a long while to get that into my system, because the minute we go on stage, we start declaiming, we start performing. When I was a boy, I was, you start to perform, because there's the innate performer in you that wants to get the idea across, that wants to project and be the actor. But this is completely the reverse. If it's not a two-way conversation, it's not possible. I can't say anything to you. It can't be just me talking. It's about me giving you that energy, you reacting to it, a conversation. And that's how I'm looking at it. So just the way that I'm talking to you right now and we're conversing is the same way that I'm trying to approach the piece. And it makes it real, it makes it true, it makes it relatable. As you said, the man looking for love winds up in a coven of vampires. And it's a metaphor on life in a way. So, who is the giver, who's the givey, who has more power, who doesn't. And it's all very, in relationships, any relationship, we always go through this thing where, someone is at a higher level, someone is lower, we try and find an equilibrium. And if we do find someone who loves us with absolute equal measure, we are blessed. Yeah. And we strive for that in life. And this play talks about that. That's the crux of it, eventually, is that to find that balance in life. And this guy's struggling. He's a bitter, horrible, cantankerous human being who hates everyone because he's not loved. And he's in search of that, finds this one actress or this person who in his head he thinks she's the one. Even though he's married and has children, but no, she's the one. And so he does stupid, crazy, childish things to try and be with her. And then, of course, one thing leads to another, and I won't give much away, but he's embroiled in this fantastical world. And it's fascinating. And again, Connor's, like Bruce said, Connor's interpretation of vampires, the way he sees them, is so different from anything else that we've seen before in life. Vis-a-vis the Nosferatus or the Interview with the Vampire, whatever we see and we've read. So our ideas of vampires change through this piece. And then we ask ourselves, I think that happens in this piece, and whoever's come to see it so far has asked and said, what is a vampire eventually? What is define one? And that's the beauty, man. Hrishi, that's what we're trying to achieve in this play. It's, again, like I said, I don't think there'll be one audience member who, I hope, doesn't ask some questions after. And
my last question is to Bruce, and it's very simply this. I've seen 2 Hindi plays which have had just one man on stage. Perhaps Zafar has also seen them. There's Dayashankar Ki Diary, which Ashish Vidyarthi plays himself. And then there's Mr. Kher, Anupam Kher, talking about his life and times. One of them I found pretty gripping. The other I found very boring. I'm not going to get into which is the one I've found boring.
As you willing out your critical muscle there. Yeah, okay.
But it's not an easy thing to do. You've directed an awful lot. You've produced an awful lot, Bruce. Have you done this before? Have you directed a one-person play on stage? And if so, what are the challenges and what's the trick of getting through it?
So I've directed 2 one-person shows. One of them was a play called Man to Man, which did the rounds at the Edinburgh Festival in 2015, and then did a UK tour before playing in New York at the Brooklyn Academy of Music in 2017. And then Seawall with Jim Sarb, which we did as part of the Ad Art Festival in 2019, just before the pandemic. And yeah, you're right, is that I think that the first rule of any for any director, whenever they're making something, it's not to ask necessarily whether it's any good or not. It's to ask, am I bored at any point? And as long as you're gripped and compelled and want to know what's happened next, even although you've seen it, sometimes in rehearsals 20, 30, 40 times, if you still want to know what happens next, then you know that you're on to something. And it's not everyone that can do a one-person show. And I've seen quite a few myself, and that having directed people in very successful one-person shows, it's got to be said, is that it's you kind of, what it is when you see it. And Zaf has got, and I'll talk about it, you can hear me, but that, it's fine. It's nothing I don't say in rehearsals anyway, because it's a terrifying thing for an actor to do, because you've got 100 people there who want to know what you're going to say next. And you have to endow them with that quality. They are there. So by right, they want to hear a story. And we have to trust that the writer has given us a compelling story to tell, which he has. He's done his job. It's fantastic. And then if he talks to us, not at us, but to us, we go with him. And we want to suspend our disbelief. We want to know what happens next. And we want this person to tell us this story. And he's got all of that in spades. Just from a vocal thing, from a presence thing, from an intuition thing, that the actors, there are certain things that you can't teach people, and that he's got that. So does his son, who I've also worked with, who's just phenomenal. So it's quite clearly.
I came backstage to tell Zafar about his son. Fantastic. Yeah,
that whole family. My goodness. So it's just, and now I need Alam to do a show with me.
Alam is my muse for the play. So Yeah, I think of her when I do the play, and it evokes all the things that I needed to evoke for it to go forward.
Lovely. St. Nicholas by Conor McPherson is directed by Bruce Guthrie. It stars Zafar Karachiwala. It's at the Little Theatre. Saturday the 14th, 2 showings, 6 p.m., 8:30 p.m. Sunday the 15th, 2 showings again, 5 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. Tickets are at Book My Show as well as at the NCPA website, ncpamumbai.com. Zafar, Bruce, till we meet again, thank you.
Thank you, Hrishi. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
94.3 Radio 1.